Boom.
It works.
Way, it's working. All right. What's going on, everybody? This is the Rockstar Roadie podcast. And I'm here with my good friend, Fred, who I can never for the fucking years pronounce his last name.
It's easy.
So I'm going to let him pronounce it.
It's easy. Kowalo, like the bear.
Kowalo. Okay. For some reason, you were in my phone as Kowalski. And I don't fucking know why.
It happens all the time.
I'm like, what the fuck?
It's
like,
usually Jeff Kowalski. People are like, hey, Jeff or Greg.
Dude, I've called you Jeff a few times.
Oh, everybody does. It's okay. I'm used to it. It's like my second name.
It's fucking weird. But anyway, so here we are, episode number 2. I have to.
And I'm happy to be number 2. That's awesome.
Dude, you're my boy. I mean, we've never toured together, but we've known each other for years. And
many years.
You know, it was great to actually see you just appear one day out of nowhere at TSO. That was a pleasant surprise, you know. And you and I have a lot in common. Both, first off, we're both Baytex. Both, second, we're old.
Yeah.
And, and we've had some health issues, and as part of this podcast, as we discuss those things, because people need to know what goes out on the fucking road with us and shit like that. But so I always have to start the podcast off with the legal disclaimer, so I don't get sued. Excuse me.
Double for me too.
Well, this goes for both of us. I am not a therapist, but I do see one. The only rules of the podcast are we don't discuss politics. We don't discuss religion. They are hotbed subjects that are just evil in our world right now. And after me seeing the news today, I don't know what the hell's going on at this point about a lot of crap. So now we're talking about space aliens. I think the aliens are coming finally just to go, you guys are messed up. We're out of here.
Oh, for that, you need to watch my podcast, and then we'll talk about aliens all day.
Dude, I'm down. I'm totally down. The wife and I watched that Ancient Alien show. We love that stuff.
I love it. I love it.
So, God damn it. All right. Really, that's it. And, it's just those two disclaimers I got to put in it. But what I always like to start off is tell me about you. I mean, I know about you, but tell everybody watching about you, your name, what you do, and how you got started.
Hi, I'm Fred. I'm a Gemini.
And I'm an alcoholic. No, I'm just kidding.
I'm an alcoholic. I'm a bass tech. Actually, I got into this business by accident. And I giggle that I've been blessed with such a long career.
Dude, so did I.
I thought this was going to be like a 5-week vacation. I worked in a television station, and I had 5 weeks vacation, and I got called to go on tour with Zakk Wylde. And I said, hey, do you mind if I take 5 weeks off? Or it was a 6-week tour. I said, can I have 5 weeks off and a week of unpaid and go on tour? And my boss goes, yeah, sure. Why not? So I took 5 weeks in a row, and I told Zakk at the end, hey man, if you're ever in Pittsburgh, thanks for the gig. If you're ever in Pittsburgh, give me a call. He goes, what are you talking about? You're my tech now. And I became, a full-time tech, doing that. But I started, it was 1999. I started with Zakk Wylde and Black Label Society, and worked my, I've been with Black Label, Shinedown, Alice in Chains, INXS, Megadeth, and TSO, and now finally with Motley Crue. But the fun thing is about me is I will sit there and tell people I'm retired. After this one, I'm done. You're not going to see me again. And they get me back. So, but I've been doing this 25 years maybe now, and I love it. I'm with Motley Crue now. I got the best boss in the world. He's great. So
Nikki's awesome.
Everything, it's rolling good. Oh, and I do, speaking of rolling, I do Limp Bizkit as well. So
no shit.
when I'm not with Motley, I'm doing Limp Bizkit. So,
well, don't sell yourself short too, because you're a badass photographer. So, and I love your work, and I love your pictures, especially the ones you took on the stadium tour. Those are really cool.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And it's something that, it just came out of, it literally being bored in a hotel room, because it's, yeah, exactly. And so I started, so one day I took a photo on stage, and I really dug it. I took it with my iPhone, and Nikki's like, "Hey man, that's a great photo." And he knows that I'm I take photos, and he goes, "Where's your camera?" I'm like, it's out in the bus, it's out, He goes, "Well, bring it. Why don't you bring it out?" And I'm like, "Well, can I?" And he said, "Yeah." So, I mean, he's been like a giant supporter of my work. And then,
Well, he does photography as well.
yeah, because he's a photographer.
Yeah.
And John's dug my work, so I would just out shooting. I shot like 7 shows for him,
Nice.
photographer, and I'm having a great time just taking photos.
Well, I mean, you touched on one thing, and by the way, this is what I should have renamed this podcast the ADHD podcast because I'll go all over the freaking board.
Oh, I do it too.
I have a monitor right here with a list of questions, and I don't follow them. Um, but I can rickroll your ass. No, that you brought up a good point when you're sitting in a hotel room. It's same thing started with this podcast. I was in a hotel room going, man, I'm teetering 60 with needing a knee replacement. And every joint in my body hurts, and it's what am I going to do? What do guys like us do
Yeah, exactly.
after 40 years of touring? I don't know anything else.
Uh, Same here.
And then I started watching podcasts and watching them. But I still haven't gotten that fucking part right. It's like you're watching a podcast or you're listening to a podcast. Whatever. So I watch these things and I'm like, I'm bored. You're boring me. I bet he likes some Pamanthi Brothers.
Yeah.
I'd kill for some Pamanthi Brothers.
Oh man, I
But
love for Manny's.
me too. But we all like on days off. I know, like if you're not with anybody, and 9 times out of 10, especially after TSO, we both are TSO alumni. I could say that
Yep.
now. Day off, you want to be left the hell alone.
Yeah.
I was fried after 5 days in a row or whatever the hell. I don't even remember this all blended together. But I get lost in my head, and then I start going down this rabbit hole of bad thoughts. What am I?
That's exactly how I describe it.
Yeah.
I'm left alone with myself.
What's that?
That's exactly how I describe it. I'm being left alone with myself, and
I'm
Yeah.
a bad man.
exactly, exactly.
But
And you try to be, it's out of sheer boredom.
Yeah.
It's let's see how far this sandwich can go out the window, and
Yeah.
then from a sandwich, it's a plate, and from then it's a plate, it's boy, I bet you this lamp could make it to that other, and that was the old days. You know what I
Dude,
mean?
in the
You-
Trickster days, they with band and Crue, we were ride or die together.
exactly.
And I mean, we didn't do anything without each other. And I remember, and everybody knows all the stories about the Riot House on Sunset.
Oh,
I
I've
have
walked on
launched
that
more
ledge.
furniture out the window at the Riot House to where the one time we came back around on another tour, I was with another band. The TV and everything was bolted to the dresser at that point. They had caught on and just said, we're bolting this shit down.
Yep.
And it
Yep.
wasn't the TVs we have now. It was the big, with
The big heavy ones.
yeah, the big heavy ones. We were throwing them out windows. We didn't care.
Oh yeah. It was a different time. It was a
Well,
different time.
When the drummer says, I'll pay the bill, it's just game on.
It's like, okay, let's do this. Oh yeah, there's been some lamps. I've been sat down. This is no joke. Somebody sat me down one time. And he said, "Well, you can't be affording this. You can't be throwing this stuff out the window. You can't afford it." And there was like a lamp sitting there, and the Steelers just like we were in Denver. Steelers just lost to Denver in the playoffs, and I went, "Oh, really?" Oh, and I just, out the window it went, man. It just he's like, "Oh, what is it? A $300 lamp?" And you go home and they go, "Where's your per diems?" It's like, well,
I left it at the hotel.
I left him at
car.
the.
Well, I remember. So one of my favorite movies, and do not freaking laugh at me, next to Xanadu is
I like
Rockstar.
Xanadu.
And you are in
Rockstar.
Rockstar.
Yeah.
And that whole debauchery scene on the floor,
Oh yeah.
I've been through that.
Oh, exactly.
And
Exactly.
it was bad. Minus the motorcycle.
Everything but one of the last times I got in I don't know if you know this, but I'm barred for life from a lot of places. and it was great to go back with like a different band and try to get into that hotel. And it's just like, no, I can't go there. And I mean, it was many, and a lot of times I was, maybe I had something to do with it. Maybe the rock star did, but my name's attached to it.
Your name's attached to that rooming list.
But there was one, man, that I couldn't get back in, and they finally let me back in. And of course, you have to throw a party because you're back in, and it was the luggage cart races down the hall.
Yes, those were fun.
That's a whole different time. There's nobody that does that anymore. And I was always the instigator, and I'll sit again, and I smile, and it's like, it's rock and roll. It's not daycare.
Yeah.
And so when I saw that scene in Rockstar, I always giggled because when that it's the scene's cut short, but I'm actually on the other side of the door, and when it
I saw
busts,
you.
well, I mean, but it was like it was supposed to be that I stick my head around and do all this, but it was just, and I giggled because and what was fun is I was supposed to just be a tech on there,
Mhm.
and I teched, and then I went to the studio and I teched the studio, and then I started out as a director when I was young, and then an actor and stuff like that. And they found out, and they're like, "Hey, you want to stick around?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And then they hired me as a consultant, which was great.
That's awesome.
And so here I am, like I'm out in California now. You got to mind you, I'm a just a normal guy from Pennsylvania, man. There's they just put a stoplight down the street from it's not even in my town. There's no stoplights in my town. And it's one road that goes straight through,
That's
and
awesome.
with houses on each side. And like I'd never been to LA, and I'd never, and it's typical Zach,
Mhm.
calls up and goes, "Hey man, I'll see you tomorrow." I'm like, "What do you mean you see me?" Because this was back in the day when there were paper tickets,
Yep.
and they weren't, you didn't get e-tickets. And he always knew, always, when the FedEx, and this was before tracking as well. I mean, the guy couldn't use a computer. I couldn't use a computer back then either. He always knew when the FedEx guy was going to show up. He'd be like, "Hey man, I'll see you tomorrow." And I'm like, "What do you mean see me?" Ding dong, the FedEx guy would be out there with a ticket to LA. And it was just so I use we got some movie thing to do. And I'm like, "Movie to do? All right, yeah, I'll be there." So we go out and we go out and we do this movie. And then I ended up sticking around. But it was always great on that. As I tell people, I'm like, they hired me on, to do guitars. I did guitars. I did the guitars in the studio. They hired me on to hang out with the film. In fact, I talked them into shooting it in Pittsburgh. So there's some scenes in there
Mhm.
because that's where the Chris Cole, Mark Wahlberg's
Yeah.
character is supposed to be from Pittsburgh. I used to go drinking with the producers. I'm like, you're talking about Indiana, you're talking about Ohio. Just make it Pittsburgh. I make movies in Pittsburgh. I work there. And they're
Good.
like,
Do
"Yeah,
Steel
we'll check
Town.
it out." And they did. So it's based in Pittsburgh, and they shot some scenes out here. But I always giggled that you know, we went out there, and those debauchery scenes, they hired me on as like a consultant.
Right.
And it's just like, well, they would have like cases of, road cases stacked three high in an arena. And you and I both know that there's no three high. The one day I came in, it was stacked five high in a pyramid. I'm like, that's not what they would do. They would just like wheel them out. I'm the consultant. So, and they're like, well, let's just say for the sake of the movie, that they would make a pyramid out of them. I'm like, but yeah, but that's not practical. That's not what they do. It's
Yeah.
it's they're like, let's just say for the sake of the movie that they would. And I'm like, am I still getting paid here? And they're like, yeah, yeah, you're getting paid. I'm like, oh yeah,
Oh, stack all you want. Yeah.
I'd stack them seven high if you can do it, man. It looks great. It looks great. But so it's stuff like that. But
Make
then
the
you had like
pyramids of Giza for all I care.
exactly. But then it was like, and I was young at the time, and I was just starting out. I'd only had a couple tours under my belt, and they're like, well, how was it back? And me, I don't know these things, so they got with some of the older guys. They got with Bonham and guys along those lines as to what really happened,
Yeah.
about that stuff. And because I missed it all early, I kind of kept it alive, and did it the Fred way. There's been a few crazy hotel nights where stuff goes out the window. Like I said, it wasn't a motorcycle crashing down our hall. It was
Yeah.
the luggage carts and stuff like that.
Dude, we did luggage carts. We did room swap furniture. Remember the song?
Oh yeah,
Wait. Remember this? Hang on. I learned how to play that, because it's easy. And we were out with Night Ranger, and Foreigner was the headliner, and I would do it to annoy Pilsen every day.
Jeff.
Me and our drum tech would play that and Alone Again just to fucking annoy Pilsen. He just come out and goes, guys. But anyway, so yeah, for us, it was rearranging the rooms, you
Yes.
know, because back then they didn't ask you for ID, so we can get a key to any room we wanted.
Oh yeah. Yeah. You just, and
We
that's
got
what people,
keys to everybody's room. We crazy glued furniture to the
oh
walls.
yeah. Yeah.
That was like, we knew it was going to cost money. And as long as a band member said, I got you covered,
I got it. Yeah.
we didn't care,
Oh yeah.
you know? Yeah, you and I could probably do another one of these for a few hours when you and I both have more time, because we, being this old and living the debauchery, we got some stories. But let's kind of move on right now. So currently you're with Motley Crue. You're taking care of Nikki Sixx, which I think is awesome. What gear is Nikki using?
So what we got for Nikki, we start with the Schecter bass, the Nikki Sixx signature, and I'll tell you what, I really like them.
They're great.
They're great basses. These guys at Schecter got
two
it.
Schecters on my wall.
They got it going on, man. And I play it, and instantly it fit my hand. And that's the thing. It's got to feel right.
Right.
And I was on tour with Journey, and I said I'm done being a guitar tech, and I became a confetti tech. And so before I got the Nikki gig, they called me when I was out on the road with Journey and go, hey, you want to do Nikki? I'm like, yeah, sure. And we had a day off in.
I'm mad too at you because I wanted that gig.
We had a day off, and I got a chance to work on his gear. And I went down there, and I was just he wasn't there, but I changed the strings. I did, so I could get acquainted with it.
Right.
And I love those basses, man. And they feel great. They're properly made.
Well, what you can't see, and I agree with you, this one right here is the Michael Anthony bass, and then there's a 5-string next to it that I can't remember. The feel of them is ridiculous.
Exactly.
And they're not expensive. I mean, they're expensive, but they're not expensive.
Exactly. And they're four, and they feel great, out of the box. So he starts with he's got the Schecter basses, and then I run him into a couple of DI. Well, I run him into a wireless live,
right?
Shure wireless, and it splits out, and I have it's a 4-way splitter, so I can send multiple signals out. So I send it to a clean DI, I send it to a dirty DI, and then one line goes off into an Ampeg preamp, and then the power amp, and then cabinets. But for stage, I've been using just one for practical, 1-810 Ampeg 810. But when I first got there, I hooked them up through an 810 and a 215, and it sounded monstrous.
Oh,
but
sure.
The dirty preamp I got one of those old tube SVTs. The tube.
The old gray boxes.
Yeah,
dude, those are awesome.
So he had one, and I'm like, man, if this thing goes down. So I went out and I bought 2 of them. I found one on Reverb, and then I found another one the next day, and I bought them both. So they're both mine.
Dude, I'm the same way with gear.
Oh,
if it works and I find it, I'm gonna buy it. I hate when companies take something good out of, like, they stop making it.
Exactly. And this thing was this, and for those bass players out there that this gives you. For me, it's the ultimate. I mean, we used it with Mike Inez and Alice in Chains, and he used it before that, in the Aussie band. I mean, it's the sound you want.
Yeah.
Of 80s, 90s. It's there. It's everything you want, and that box is amazing. So nice. I went and bought 2 of them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, as bass players, you and I both, there's no sound to me like an EMG through an Ampeg.
Exactly.
I don't care if it's a Hondo bass.
Yeah.
If it's got an EMG in it, through an Ampeg, it sounds monstrous. And if anyone says no, I'll prove them wrong all day long, because I have a Hondo somewhere, I think, in a closet up there.
What's funny is I got a Hondo as well.
Oh my God, it was my first bass.
Oh yeah. Well, I've got a Hondo guitar. It was my first guitar. My mom and dad bought it for me for Christmas. And it's a little Hondo Les Paul. In fact, I think I have one of the Hondo machine gun guitars too. It's floating around down there in the guitar vaults.
Well, here I just got so I could see, I don't know if you I don't think you could see them on your end, but I can see the questions that come in. And my buddy Mike Arata just said something good. So you and I have a mutual friend, and unfortunately he has passed away. Um, and you and I have known Viggy forever. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
like I said, Viggy and I started in Jersey back when we were young. So we got stories for days. And personally, I can't go into mine for legal reasons. No, I'm just kidding. Uh, but for me, there are some stories that I'm going to hold close to me. For me, they're my memories, and eventually one day I'll share them. But some of Iggy's stories, man, that boy can eat. Holy crap! It was years ago, and I was in LA, and I called him, and he was living with Tommy at the time.
Yeah.
He's like, "Come over for dinner." I'm like, what? Tommy wasn't even home. He's like, "Come over to the house for dinner." I'm like, "All right." Boy cooked a meal for like 4 of us, and it looked like an Italian family of 50 was gonna sit down.
Exactly.
That
He
boy,
would do
I
that
don't
on
think
the road.
he did it? He did it on the road?
Oh, he'd make, "You gotta try my meatballs, and I've got this pasta." Yeah, he would do it. He was awesome, man. He was a great cook.
We did, him and I did Ozfest together many years ago. I wanna say it was 2000. He was, Tommy was doing the whole DJ
Yeah.
thing, and J3, was playing guitar with him. So my bus, I was the tour manager for Reveille on the second stage, and my bus would run with Tommy's bus because I knew the crew, and Bobby Dallas was it Bob Dallas? It was Bob
Bob
Dallas
Dallas. Yep.
was the tour manager, and so we all run together. So we like 3 o'clock in the morning one night, Viggy and Tommy get off the bus shit hammered. I mean, and Tommy's walking around pretty much with his Johnson hanging out because he's half, and half in the bag, and Viggy's just blah, 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 blah. And we're all going in a truck stop for food. They get a bunch of stuff, and Tommy looks at Viggy and says something, and Viggy's like, "I didn't bring it." And they both look at me. "Hey, you got $20 we could borrow?" I'm
Yeah.
like, "You dicks."
That's the rock star way right there.
Yeah, listen, I'll give him credit. I mean, the guy was wearing sandals and shorts with a cigarette hanging out of his mouth, going in a truck stop at 2 o'clock in the morning. So, bless his heart for even just being able to do that. But yeah, that was one of my funny Viggy stories because Viggy was just running around the store grabbing everything,
Oh, yeah.
anything he can get his hand on, chocolate. It was insane. But yeah, that was a big hurt to the community and a big hurt to the playback world. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
he was an
He was an
amazing
innovator
programmer
of
like
all
that.
that stuff, man. A lot of people counted on him to, you know, help them out with their playback. I mean,
Oh, I'm still
he
seeing
was an
playback rigs from
innovator.
him now. I mean,
Yeah.
hell, TSO, we had, still the iPad and it says playback control. I had to see that every night. I'm like, Jeff, you gotta turn that shit around. I don't want to see that every night.
Yeah. No,
I
he was great. I rode the bus with him. I loved him. I've known
Yeah.
him for many, many years. But, yeah, that was a hard one. That was a real hard one.
Well, and it sucks, brother, but it's yeah. Anyway, so that brings me to my next question. Obviously, we've talked about this part of this podcast is about mental health and it's about how you deal with things. My story has been told and I'll continue to tell it because I don't believe, and again, I was raised that men are taught to keep to themselves and don't talk about their feelings, don't talk about their emotions, don't talk about that, or else you feel emasculated if you do it. I
Yeah.
want to break that stigma because it doesn't need to be like that. I mean, I mean, listen, I admitted, and my buddy Ryan, Ryan Smith from Shore, he just chimed in. You love Xanadu too? Yes, me and Fred love Xanadu. I'm okay with that. Just don't start. I'll probably watch it tomorrow when I'm up at my shop.
Oh, I remember watching it as a kid, man.
Dude, I still watch it. I'll put it on I'll put that or some other obscure wacko movie on up at the shop and, just for background noise. But anyway, if I get too far off, I'm screwed. So what do you do? I mean, how do you handle the stresses, the anxieties? How do you handle, I guess for lack of a better term, just being away from family and the loneliness and, all of that stuff? Because it does weigh on all of us. And people who say it doesn't, I'm going to call you a liar.
Oh, I say that all the time. And back in the day, it was easy. I had rock stars that just would go out and get smashed every day. And they were loyal to their wives, loyal to their families, and it was just a bunch of guys being marauders, hitting the bars. We weren't looking to hook up with anybody. We were looking to get drunk with ourselves, and that was, you know, I always say that I'm lucky that I was with guys like that.
Yeah.
It was just us, but it was a lot of drinking, man, and there wasn't so much drug use or whatever, but it was, and that's how you coped. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then it became the silly pranks, and just to keep you sane.
No, it's still the silly pranks.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too. But after a while, you need more and more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And left alone, and I'll be straight up honest with it, man. We talked about the ride house. I've walked on that ledge.
Mhm.
I've Jim Morrisoned on that ledge. I've danced on the damn thing, and it's just you teeter on the edge of health and safety,
Yeah.
and and you think, man, am am I this bored? And for me, it came out of boredom.
Mhm.
And you miss funerals, you miss birthdays, you miss weddings, you miss holidays. TSO. How about that for
That
a
one
downer?
that's the first Christmas and Thanksgiving. Well, first Christmas since my children were born that I've ever missed.
And it was
Which
hard
now that
on.
they're grown,
Yeah,
they were fine with it, you know?
yeah.
But me, I'm a
I had
sentimental old bastard.
Oh yeah, man. And I had the kids. I had young kids. I had, and you're missing these things.
Yeah.
And I've missed so many birthdays. My daughter graduated. I was in Amsterdam. And I said, I am not missing my daughter's graduation. I flew home from Amsterdam, watched her graduate, and caught the next flight back to London in the morning.
Yeah.
And but those are some things you have to do. But that kept me sane because I've missed a lot.
Yeah.
I've missed funerals. I've seen guys out there that their parents died, but they can't get away, and it's just people don't realize that you're out there being a rock star. Oh, you're out there. No, man, it's a lot of time where you sit around and you're like, I miss my kids. I
Yeah.
miss my family.
That's what my ex-wife used to say. My ex-wife, "Oh, you're out there partying." Yeah. No, I'm
That's what
not.
mine used to say.
I'm not. I'm
That-
I'm literally out there. Hang on, I have to do this. Hang on. I have to, unfortunately, I'm out there miserable
yeah.
because I'm missing my children. I missed birthdays, graduations, soccer games, football games, cheerleading.
Yes.
And like you, there was a couple times where I said, "Screw this! I got to go home to." I couldn't go to my son's actual graduation ceremony, so
Yeah.
I flew in, did the night before for his rehearsal, and then I had to leave that
Yeah.
same night. But I'm like, I'm not doing this. My daughter was in the hospital. I flew literally off a tour to Nashville, dropped my bags. I don't even think I washed my ass. Jumped in my car, drove to Cincinnati to Children's Hospital, went straight to her hotel room, hospital room. And I stayed with her for a week. And my ex-wife and I would swap off. I would stay at the hospital a couple nights. Then I had a cheesy, crappy motel, where then my ex-wife would stay with her. This was way before COVID. So you
Yeah.
can do that. You can spend multiple nights. One parent can spend multiple nights. But anyway, so you're right. And if you don't do that, I felt like I was going to lose it.
Yeah.
I honestly felt like, what am I doing this for? This isn't, back in the day, it was sex, drugs, rock and roll. Sure. Now it's Geritol, ibuprofen, and in bed early.
Well, that's exactly. And I tell people it's a business. And the guys that stick around treat it like a business, man. And you see, look at how many of our friends are sober now. You know what I mean? Me and Zach were talking the other day. They're either sober or they're dead.
Yeah.
And it's
And that's the nail on the head. That
Oh
is
yeah,
the nail on the head right there. They're sober or they're dead.
exactly.
This May, I'll be 30 years sober from booze and pills.
See, that's awesome.
But friends of mine, and I can read you off this list one day or send it to you, Todd Confessori, many others. They were younger than me. They're not around anymore.
Yeah.
So why is me being sober and them being sober, how did that change? Why did that someone take them and not take me? Why? What gives me the see? And these are the questions that go
Those
on in your head.
well, those I was just gonna say, those are the questions you think about when you're sitting alone in your room and you're trying to not, be good, and you've got everybody yapping in your ear about how you're bad, it's those kind of things. They eat at you. And people like we just said, people like, yeah, right. No, man, these are the things that come into your mind on the road that happen. I mean, look, there's been many a time I've sat around and goes, who would care if I ever, if I came home or not, and it's a rough space you're in because you're in a rock between a hard place.
Yeah.
You don't want to screw up royally, and you're stuck. This is your job.
Yeah.
And that was the thing too, is I've tried to come home. I've tried to come home many times.
Me
It,
too.
something always just, it brings you back. I mean, I always say I didn't choose this just job. This job chose me, man. And because this wasn't even on my radar. I went to school to be a director. I was a, I worked on at a television station. I worked as a stagehand.
Mhm.
I lucked into this, and I've tried to get out so many times,
Mhm.
and it just doesn't happen. It sucks me back in. But when
I
you come
retired a
home,
few times.
here's what happens. And I was explaining this to somebody the other day. When you come home, you don't know what to do with yourself. And it's just like
Right
it's
there.
it's like I'm useless.
Yeah,
It, it,
let me interrupt you right there
Good.
because that is a very you just nailed the head on something that I discovered on TSO. So, and the only reason I discovered it on TSO is because we barely have any days off.
Yeah.
There's barely any time to yourself. So I didn't kind of, working, 2 shows a day, backline loading at 5, 6 a.m. You're going all
Yep.
day. You don't stop. And then you get that day off and all you do is sleep.
Yeah.
So what I discovered was mentally I was fine. I was in a very good place. Routine. I come home. What happens?
Yep. You're not in that routine anymore.
Not in the routine. Then this needs fixed. This has to be updated. And then you start getting your head going, well, I'm not working right now, but I'm paying all this money to have this stuff go out.
There you
And
go.
then there comes the rabbit hole. That's
Yep.
that's like the grass on the rabbit hole before you fall in.
That's
Because
it.
now you have no income, but you've saved. So you're smart. I did good. But then you go, what am I good for?
Yeah.
Then it sinks in. Then you start to get in your head. That's what I noticed where I came home and I felt useless.
That's what everybody says to me. Oh, you don't have enough money. You don't make enough money out there. It's not that because I'll go to work. I'll work 16, 18 hours a day
Yeah.
when I'm home because I'm a stagehand. I'll go do a load in show and out, and I'll do it every day because that's what I'm used to.
Mhm.
And I'll go do a movie for 16, 18 hours a day because when I'm not, I'm useless. And here's the other thing. When I'm off, I'll just lay around and watch TV. But I found, and we'll get back to the photography thing, I've started editing, like learning photography, and that keeps my mind, that's the hobby on the road.
Mhm.
And I'll sit in my hotel and I'll edit. And people are like, I tried to get a hold of you for 6 hours. What were you doing? I was editing. And I've discovered that when I edit photos, man, I get creative. You know what I mean? So I'm still, but that's helping me with a lot of the anxiety that comes out there with it. I found a little sub hobby that's off, that I can do on the road
Right.
and do in my spare time that keeps my mind occupied. And so instead of throwing a TV out the window, I'm photographing somebody else throwing a TV out the window and making art out of it or
Well,
something.
that's the same thing for me. Like sometimes if the anxiety, and I'm not going to sit here and lie, this thing right here, this device gives me the worst anxiety
Yeah.
nowadays. I
Yeah.
hate it.
Yep.
Can't stand being on it unless it's for business. If it's for business, I'm okay to talk. But personally, I literally have anxiety attacks. So, and what I'm noticing for me, which has been more come to light after the pandemics, ended, is that when I build something, that helps my anxiety.
Yeah.
Like if I go to the shop and I'm building a rig, if I'm building, a guitar, if whatever, that calms my anxiety.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yes,
Well,
Mike, I know you're retired and you're bored.
well, what's funny is when you just said that about your phone, I've had like 3 people call me up in the past, literally like before, you know, I got on the podcast and everybody's bitching. Oh, you didn't get back to me. Yeah, because I worked 18 hours yesterday.
Mhm.
I went, and it's like, well, I had a question about this, I had a question about that. And it's just like, look, man, I answered it as I could.
Yeah.
I try to and they're like, "Oh, you don't text me back, you don't call, you don't." I try not to talk on the phone as much as possible,
Yeah.
and it's like that on the road. I'll take it, and I'll put it down, and I'll lose it, and and it's just
Good.
like,
I do the same thing on a Friday. I'll put the phone down. I won't touch it again until Monday.
yeah, I
I
wish I
have
could do
to
that.
disconnect. I have no choice. I have to disconnect from it. If it's an emergency, the people that it's an emergency from, my watch will tell me it's an emergency because
See, I need to get one of those.
I let the calls through, those are on my emergency list, those people. But yeah, I mean, I have to disconnect. I mean,
Yeah.
you can't, I mean, we live on the road and you are bound by this thing on the road,
Yep.
and that's, thank God for the invention of FaceTime
Yeah.
when my kids were still little enough for me to use it with them because that helped bring some sanity into the world
Yeah.
for me traveling and not being with them all the time and
Yeah.
seeing them. And so that helped. But all right. So let's see. I got a whole list of questions. I'm not
Keep
going
it
to ask
coming.
you that because I know what that one is. Health. How, and you and I have had this conversation. I think we had it on TSO. How do you deal with health issues on the road, and what health issues have you had, if you had any?
Oh,
I mean,
man.
everybody knows my story, but I know yours.
I've I've had I think I counted one time I've gotten 16 concussions on the road, uh, multiple gashes.
But I had a few of those on TSO right here
Oh
from
yeah,
under your stage.
hitting
And
that
you're
thing.
bigger than me. You're taller. I'm short
Yeah,
little guy.
it hurts. It hurts. Uh, Went to the hospital twice for heart attacks. It's stress, man. The
Mhm.
doctor told me, she goes to me, she goes, they took my blood, and this is the fun thing. Uh, she took my blood, and they expected to find drugs in my system, and there was nothing. So she goes, "I've never seen blood pressure so high. I've never seen, she's like, "What are you what are you on?" I'm like, "Nothing." I said, I'm mad." I said, "I'm stressed out and I'm mad." And she's like, "Okay." So they took it again. There was nothing in there. And she goes to me, she goes, "Well, you're gonna have to stay." I'm like, "I can't. I gotta, I gotta be in, you know, Columbus or whatever tomorrow,
Yeah.
and Lexington tomorrow." And she's like, "No, you need to." I'm like, "I can't. There's nobody can do my job. I need to go." And so I took myself out of the hospital and off I went. I had the guys in Jersey when they came and got me. I had to sign papers. They're like, "You're gonna wake up dead." I'm like, "That's the wrong band." I said, "That's the old band. Fucking wake up dead." I said, "I have to work." So when they looked at my heart, the woman, she goes, "Well, what's so stressful about your job?" I said, "Well, I work 100 hours a week." And she goes, "Well, that's what a doctor does." I said, "Well, I work 100 hours in 5 days." And she goes, "That's impossible." I said, "No." I said, "By the time you fall asleep and by the time you get up, you're getting about, if you're lucky, 4 hours."
Mhm.
I said, "And I've got, 5 people that rely on me, and I'm getting bombarded from everything and dealing with stuff at home, dealing with the stuff on the road, trying to make everything, happy for everybody and still putting on that smile that like, because you can't act like there's anything wrong because then, oh, the artist is all, oh, yeah, it's like, they get bummed out. But the thing is I told her, I said, "Man, I work 5 20 hour, just about 5 20 hour days in a row." And she goes, "That's impossible." I'm like, "No." She goes, "What, for like a week?" I'm like, "No." I said, "For 2 months." And she goes, "There's no way." And I'm like, "Yeah." And I showed her my schedule, and she's like, "That's what's killing you." And what do I do when I come home? I go straight back to work.
Yeah.
And that's exactly, I've done it forever. And it's just like, they're like, you need to take a vacation. But then again, I come home, I'm useless. I'm doing nothing. And, you know, if I'm letting thoughts get into my head out on the road, sitting alone in a hotel room, or letting things get to me back home by myself, I need to be out on the road doing something,
Yeah.
and I've people laugh, man. They're like, you do all these things. Yeah, they do. I do, because it it keeps my mind, off of, it keeps my mind occupied. So
Well, I call it, it keeps your mind off dealing with real life.
yeah,
And let's just be real. Real life sucks.
yeah,
And right now, again, we don't get into politics, but our country, everyone's like, "Oh, America's the greatest." Listen, yeah, we're awesome, but I've been to other countries and they are better off than us on some
I
places.
say that all the time. I
They are
tell
better
people that
off
all the
than
time,
us, man.
and I tell people I'm thankful for the chance to see these other places, to be grateful for what we have, and to see the things that we don't have. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? See the politeness of other countries and the rudeness of, you know, it's weird, man. But I'm thankful for the opportunity to see these things, and
yeah.
to, but yeah, we don't talk politics, but if there's a lot to be learned from going somewhere else,
No,
and
100%.
seeing that stuff.
And it also, when you see that stuff and you come home, like I've been to Tibet, Thailand,
Yeah.
all those places. When I come home, I'm grateful. I'm
Yep.
grateful that I'm not in other countries living in a shanty town.
India. Oh my God. Yeah.
India, Chile,
Yeah.
Sao Paulo, you're coming in from the airport and you're driving through shanty towns.
Yep.
And if for people who don't know what a shanty town is, it's basically a couple pieces of pipe or wood or whatever in a blanket thrown over it.
That pretty
And it's
much.
literally an entire town.
And it's
I
far, as
joke
far,
you not.
far as your eye can see.
I joke you not. It is that. So I'm grateful, I'm lucky and I'm grateful at the same time. All right. So let's have some fun. What? That's not your style. I can't ask Fred a question like that because I wouldn't ask myself a question like that.
Oh, ask me. Go ahead.
Okay. What is actually your favorite part of touring? I mean, we've discussed the parts we don't like. What parts do you like?
So check this
Or
out.
parts?
I am, I love history, and I love being able to see where an event happened.
Mm,
So, man, if there's a place that's historic, I'll go see. I'll go seek it out. I've been to Italy several times, and I'd never seen the Colosseum or the Forum. This is no joke. So I
really?
said one day, I said, "Man, I left my radio in the hotel. I got to go back and get it." And so I loaded in, checked all my stuff, made sure it worked, and I went back to my hotel to get my radio, and I went to the Forum. I went to the Coliseum and the
You did a
Forum.
drive by.
No, no, I didn't drive by. I went in the damn thing.
Oh yeah, no, that's what I mean. You drove by it and just said, "I'm in."
Yeah, I cut the line. I do this thing called Get Your Guide, and it's got these like cut the line tickets. So I cut the line. I went running in, and you're supposed to go with a guide. I just read through, took pictures.
Did a
I
lap
was
and
there,
bailed.
done, in and out.
Nice.
But I do that stuff, man, and but I try to see as much as I can, uh, and experience as much as I can. Even on the days off. With the photography thing's been a godsend, because I go out and you know I can see it. I take it in because I'm looking for the angle that I want to see the beauty of these things,
Right.
and then I come back and I can edit it and look at it and say, hey, look, this is what, this is it. And even the details that I missed the first time, I've got them on a I've
Yeah.
got them on a memory stick somewhere.
Well, what's cool is like you're talking about being a history buff. So when I was with Slayer, I started with Slayer as Tom and Jeff's tech um, for a little bit, and then Kerry next tour, Kerry stole me and brought me on stage over at his side. But Jeff Hanneman, rest his soul, such an amazing, great guy. Was a World War II history
Yeah.
buff. So we were over in Europe a lot,
Yeah.
and he would, come on, let's go, let's go, let's go. Where are we going? We're gonna go to the bomb factory.
Yeah.
We're gonna go to the podium where Hitler stood.
I did that in Nuremberg. Yeah.
Yeah, so he would take you to these places, and he'd take you to the old, Nazi museums, and he would know about all the pieces
Yeah.
because he collected them. So I learned a lot of history through him on a subject I really, really didn't want to learn, but
Yeah.
just to see that stuff, and like you said, to get out and explore and to learn things is
Yeah.
is actually pretty cool. So, all right, let's see. Hmm. What was the first record you ever bought with your own money?
So I was just on a podcast the other day and we had this discussion. So the first album I ever got was Billy Idol's Rebel Yell. And I got it for my 16th birthday because I really didn't buy records. I mean, it was along those lines. But so, you know, it's no secret that Motley Crue was my favorite band. So I was
I love
uh
Motley.
and I went out and I bought, Shout at the Devil, man, and Twisted Sister and probably all the Generation X stuff, from because I like Billy Idol as well.
Yeah.
And
Every band I've ever worked for, I bought their friggin' albums before I ever worked for them.
exactly. And
People are like, "Oh,
that's what
you're a super fan." No, I just like good music.
exactly.
I mean,
And
Jesus
it was
Christ, I
that.
work for Bon Jovi. Hello.
And I remember Bon Jovi was one of the first, as a fan in the audience, he was opening up for 38 Special
Yeah.
on the 7,800 Fahrenheit tour. And I remember taking photos at that show with like a little Kodak camera. And it was, they came out great. Yeah, I wish I knew where they were now.
Yeah.
But man, music back then, and that was the thing. You bought the album and you only had a limit of eight songs, 10 songs, and that was what you didn't have the internet where you could look up their home addresses or what they had for lunch at Spago yesterday.
Mhm.
It was always you waited for the next Circus magazine or Cream magazine or Hit Parader to come out to learn about your favorite bands, or you opened up their album and read their liner notes.
Yep.
Man, I knew who Tim Lucy was. I knew Rudy Lyron. I knew all these texts,
Yep.
from just reading their liner notes on the albums. And that was that's how you immersed yourself into bands back then. And it just made, when you could look at that artwork, it made the album that much better. If
Yeah.
you want to get into things like Kiss Alive and, Alive 2, you looked at that and you're like, oh my God, I've never seen them, but this looks amazing,
Yeah.
And so you got to, I don't know. I'm an old record guy too. And once I started buying records, now see my mom and dad listened to good music. My dad had, he was a Pink Floyd nut, both of them. And he had like every Floyd album and Zeppelin and Hendrix and Kraftwerk. And, you go down the line, Queen, this stuff was around the house all the time. And, it's like, I'm going to go listen to Motley Crue. I'm going to go listen to Twisted Sister. But man, he had Black Sabbath, and
Uh-huh.
just, so, but I was always, I was exposed to all that and then I grow up and I end up knowing these guys or working for them or, "Hey, I have a question for you. Can you answer?" They call me up and ask me questions. I'm like, "Yeah, I could do it." And it's just like, I I remember my dad, he ran into, Johnny Rod from Wasp. He used to live here in Pittsburgh.
I know Johnny very well.
And I worked with his wife, Bridget, at the TV station. So my dad, because our albums were all together, and I just remember my dad meeting him. He goes, "I think I have one of your records, one of your albums in my stack of records." And he did. It was my Wasp album got stuck over on his side, but that's what he told me. He's, I think I got one of your records in my collection over there, and just silly stuff like that. But it was always fun to like I said, to get a record and now the line in Rockstar, I used to have posters of these guys on my wall.
Yeah.
Now I'm one of them. Man, I used to have posters of, Motley Crue on my wall and
Now you work for him.
Yeah, now I work for him, you
Dude,
know?
I grew up, again, the Jersey circuit, Skid Row, Bon
Yeah.
Jovi, Trickster, all the other bands, Sabotage. That's
Mhm.
how Al Petrelli and I know each other. That's why when he met me at rehearsals at TSO, we talked for like a second, and then he came back around and he asked me a question. He goes, "After this question, I'll give you a hug." And he said something about back home, and I went, "Yeah, but," and he was like, "Dude,"
Yeah.
he hadn't seen me in probably 20 years.
Yeah.
But the last thing him and I did together, Megadeth was with Slayer in South America, and he was in Megadeth, and that was
Mhm.
20 years ago.
Yeah.
But then we remembered, shit, we go back another 20, another 15, 20, back to the club days of Billy O's in Staten Island.
Yeah.
I forget the name of the club we used to play down in Pittsburgh all the time. There was a club. What the hell was it?
There was graffiti down there. There was,
No,
oh, it's gone now. The Decade?
maybe.
The Decade was a big one in Oakland where, like, the Police started there and
Yeah,
Stevie
I
Ray
drank a lot
Vaughan
back
and,
then.
so all
But
those guys were there. Trying to think of where else.
But it's like, you see these people and then you go, "Oh shit, we grew up together." Oh, so and then you start working for them and it's like it makes it better, in my
Yeah.
opinion. Like working with Al and Jane and Vitali, it was like I didn't know Jane or Vitali, but Al and I knew each other, but it was instant. And you just got along and it was cool.
Yeah.
Um, it's like one of the other things too, which is a great thing that happened. So I was years ago, for many years, I was with Cindy Lauper. I started as her guitar tech, then second year, keyboard tech and guitar tech, and then the second year I was production manager. Go
Funny how
figure
that happens.
how dumb they were. But that lasted 12, 13 years. And I ended up as tour manager towards my exiting of hiring your publicist as your manager. Anyway, so we were out with Cher, and my mom was a humongous Cher freak. I mean, humongous. So we were backstage one day and I asked Cher's person, "Hey, can Cher meet my mom?" She's like, "Yeah, sure, bring her back." Made my mom's day. And my mom was a musicophile, but she was more like Cher, old days,
Mhm.
Beatles, The Who. She turned me on to Dean Martin. She turned me on to, Frank Sinatra. I grew up with the Sinatras over in Hoboken, so I knew them. But she turned me on to, Dean Martin and all that stuff like that. And I grew up on that stuff. And then I hit the metal phase and it was just on.
Yeah.
It was just on. All right, so let's see. What is one of your favorite cities to play, but also one of your, like, if you were going to a city of, nah, that's really a dumb question. What's one of your favorite cities to play?
Well,
Anywhere in
uh,
the world, anywhere.
man, I love Lisbon, Portugal, and I love going to Europe and seeing that. I love Moscow. I love Tokyo. Uh,
Oh, Japan,
Tokyo.
take me there all day long.
Oh man, for Tokyo, I was there twice in November and December. I went with Motley, and then I turned around after we left Australia, and I went straight back to Tokyo with Limp Bizkit, and I had 5 days off in Tokyo, and I went absolutely nuts. And people, what's great is my niece just went to Tokyo. She just got engaged in Tokyo, so I was like telling her places to go, and it was nice to see somebody because it's great when that you can have that experience of when you see somebody that probably shouldn't be in Tokyo, and then you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, when you went to Tokyo, but man,
I'll tell you where every crappy noodle shop that looks like a shanty is and has the best food. I know where they all are.
Exactly, and that's what I do. I used to know how to go around the Green Line, stop at Omani Santo, and you go, all these things, man. I love that place so much,
Mhm.
and I tell people it's like no place you've ever been.
Nope.
I told somebody one time, I said you could take a stack of $100 bills, throw them up in the air if you're playing 2 nights. And I said you could throw them up in the air and come back, and the next day they'll all be there, sequential, all in the and cleaned,
Dude, that tripped me out about my first tour to Japan years. I mean, we're talking years ago, and it was obviously with the late great Mr. Udo, his people. I had showed up. We went into the venue, did rehearsals, right? Couple days of rehearsals, and then we're out of there on to the next venue. They're like, "Oh, backline's going in at 1." I'm like, "Dude, I got a lot of crap I got to set up. Don't worry about it." Okay. New guy, young, don't know.
Yep.
Walk in the next day, everything was set exactly. The only thing they didn't do was plug my cables in.
That's it.
I
Yep.
mean, literally, no joke, my ashtray when I used to smoke was in the same spot on my work box.
Same angle. Yeah.
Dude, one day there was like 100 of them that and I'm not being I'm not exaggerating. It was like 100 of them that came out taking pictures,
Yeah.
and we didn't know what the hell they were doing. And
It's
sure enough,
it's
next show day,
amazing.
I was like,
Yep.
"God damn." But yeah, so I interrupted you. So Japan and
No, no, no. It's you've had the experience, and you try to explain that to people, and people are like, "No, yeah, it's that intense," you know. But yeah, I love Japan. I cannot, Osaka,
mm,
but that's a whole experience in itself when you go to multiple cities and ride the train and it's great. But
there's
that's
nothing like taking the bullet train and waking up out of a nap and you look out the window and there's Mount Fuji.
yep,
That is a
absolutely.
trip.
Yeah, and you see it, or the because we always used to go in the spring, the cherry blossoms, and it's
Gorgeous.
just, it's just amazing. And again, we have that stuff here, but there's just something about it that you feel I'm lucky for this, I'm grateful for this, I'm happy to have a career that sidetracked me to go there. But Tokyo is one of my favorite places. I love Moscow. Oh my God, I love going to Moscow. It's amazing there. I'm my family's Russian, but my grandparents and my great grandparents. But man, when I went there, and they treat you great. I mean, it's bunk what you see, and
Dude, we had a
talking to
blast with Slayer over there.
oh my god,
Holy crap.
it's so fun, and people are real.
Yeah.
There's not, people are fans are fans. Hell, we
Now,
went to
have you ever had the Russian experience with the band though? So we go over there with Slayer, and thank God I quit drinking. That's all I got to say. But Kerry can drink. So we
yeah,
were over there, and our escorts were former Russian
Red Army,
Red Army.
KGB, Red Army, yeah.
We like go into the hotel, people would scatter. They check us in, we'd take us up to our floor. We had the entire floor. It was, and you couldn't leave without one of them. But when they always had a room at the end of our hall, then they see you pop your head out of some, come down, you come down. Oh crap, what's gonna happen? I don't know. I mean, am I gonna, come down? He come in, opens the door. There's a bottle of vodka,
Yeah,
cigarette smoke everywhere, and guys with shot glasses just pounding vodka. They're like, "You want to drink?" I'm like, "I don't drink. I'm sorry." But yeah, it's Russia's hysterical, and
they're great.
oh yeah,
They're great, and I still have friends over there. I talk to them. I'll text them or Instagram or whatever, and they sent me home with vodka. We made this ourselves, and it's
oh,
killer, and it's just like you throw it in your suitcase, and when you try to get back through customs, they're like, do you have anything to declare? It's like, no, any cigarettes or alcohol? No, they're just gifts. And the guy's like, why do you have 9 bottles of wine and vodka in your suitcase? It's just like, oh, those are gifts.
dude,
I didn't buy them.
I came home from Europe, and I was dumb and young, and I didn't think anything of it. But I had what was the absinthe. I bought a couple bottles of
Yeah.
absinthe.
Yeah.
Cost me a fortune. I'm like, I'm taking this shit home, and I'm gonna hang out with my girlfriend for a while. So I'm going through customs, coming back into the States, all of us, and we're all disheveled. I mean, the long
Yeah.
hair out the wazoo.
Yeah.
We're just getting off a flight from like 9 hours, and we're still shit hammered. Going through customs, and Lay's like, I handed her my thingy. She goes, "You have anything to declare?" And I just looked at her and said, "I'm insane." And then she laughed and goes, "Get out of here." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh shit, that worked." Because if they would have went through my bag, I was paying out the ass.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
so yeah, I mean, I like to tell people, I've been fortunate in my career, and I know you have too, to visit all over the world. I like to tell people I've seen the four corners of the world and
Yeah.
touched them all. So at the end of the day, don't believe everything you see on the news.
Yep. I tell people that all the time.
Don't believe it, because I have been in countries that you have been told are evil, and they have been nothing but the warmest, sweetest people to me.
Yep.
Seriously.
Absolutely.
All right. So you went to school to be a director.
Yep.
So this next question will probably work for you. What would be, in your opinion, as a promising director, your favorite film soundtrack?
Oh,
Yeah. See, I can
anything
pull
that
one out my ass.
anything Pulp Fiction is just to me is amazing.
Anything Tarantino, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of what the other one was that I really dug. City of Angels
Oh,
back in the day was it had a lot of good songs on it. But man, any you could listen to any Tarantino soundtrack, and the cat not only does he write well, not only does he direct well, he picks great music
dude,
for
Dust
those
Till
soundtracks,
Dawn.
and they are just
That first Dust Till Dawn soundtrack is
yeah,
ridiculous, man.
yeah,
What was it? Tito and the Tarantulas, I think it was the
Tito and the Tarantulas,
they're
After
awesome.
Dark, and what was the other one? Uh, yeah, there was 2 of them on there. But yeah, I actually bought those albums. I
Mhm.
bought Tito and the Tarantulas albums because of the
Me
Dusk
too.
Till Dawn soundtrack.
Yeah, no, I agree. Tarantino's got some badass stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Um, all right. I know you've got to go soon. So at the end, we're not ending right now. Just so you
Yeah.
know,
Oh, we
it's a
got
new
time.
thing. The new thing I'm implementing. We're going to end the show with a trivia question
Alright.
and then a guess this song question.
Okay.
So I'll play a song and you have to figure out who it was. Now, you're probably going to get it.
Make it easy.
Yeah, it might be. So we didn't really get into some of the questions. So what are your thoughts? And I'm sure you've seen it on up and coming crew guys, new guys entering our business, thinking, what do you? I mean, I know what I think, but I don't want to, tell you what I think. You've seen new guys coming into our industry. What do you think?
Well, here's the bad thing about being me is,
No filter like me.
I'll teach anybody anything until you know it all. You
Mhm.
know what I mean? Until I know that I do it like this. Man, I still ask questions I probably asked you questions when
Mhm.
when I run into you on the road and I've known you forever. Yeah, why'd you do it like that? Yeah. And I still do that. I
Yeah.
ask people why you do things because you have to learn something every day.
Mhm.
And this stadium tour, to be with Aiden Mullen, to be with, Scott Appleton, to be with, just everybody, Tom,
Saying names I love. I love those
you
guys.
know, Tom Weber, to be out there with these guys that they're a fountain of knowledge. And to them, I'm the new guy, even though I've been around for a while. Those guys been around a lot longer than that. But I see kids come in and man, maybe it's just me. I always have a level of respect for the guys that have been there before. And you come into some cats that, try to help them. I mean, you got some cats that are just there's no helping them,
Yeah.
and you watch them screw up, and you try to, "Hey, man, look, I'm just trying to help you." "I know what I'm doing," and you don't see those cats advancing too far. There's a reason why we get the gigs we get,
Yep.
and stuff like that. It's just not, but I try to help everybody. Uh, Technology's different, I mean, I'm I admit it. I'm Kemper illiterate. I'm digital technology illiterate. Give me a head, give me
Mhm.
an amp, give me some knobs to turn.
I've been
Eh,
sitting with that thing for weeks
what do you
playing
got? It's like
Fractal.
I see. Well, Broderick, we I love Fractal.
Oh,
Uh,
me too.
and those cats they were always good to me, and every time I had a question, I called up Matt or Charlie, and they would help me out, and I was always thankful, and, but I haven't had to use one, but years later, I actually wrote Bacone last week, and he got right back to me within 12 hours, because I wrote him on the weekend,
Dude, I
and he
got him
wrote
on speed dial.
yeah, I got him a speed dial, but I wrote him an email. But those cats are always great. But as for learning this new stuff, I had an artist. It told me his sound sucked. I said, "So what do you need?" And he had a Kemper, and he goes, "I need it to sound better." And I'm like, "Okay, so what do you need? Do you need what more bass, more treble. I don't know. You're the tech. What am I? And I'm like, I
See,
can give
right
you
there, my
anything you.
paycheck just went up. As soon as he said that, my paycheck. All right, cool.
So, but I'm finding that was an artist that was doing that. I'm finding kids doing that they can't explain what they want or how to get it. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's just, and I got I've run into, because we do festivals,
Oh, yeah.
and I want I've actually gotten gigs from just sitting back and watching other people screw up, and you tell somebody, hey man, don't it's a rainstorm, don't uncover your gear. And it's a true story, man. Don't tell me what to do. It's my gig. Dude uncovered his gear right down the middle of the
It's
tent.
down right on him.
And,
Yep.
and it just it done. What do you now you're scrambling,
See,
and it's just like, if somebody's trying to tell you, hey man, just
just take
some
the advice.
friendly advice,
I tell these
you
guys
may want to
nowadays
wait.
I tell these guys nowadays, shut your mouth and open your ears.
I
End of discussion. My buddy Mike just put it, he just said in here, and I love this too. He said, new guys coming up are looking to change the business because they can't keep up with the pace that we have set.
Exactly.
And
And
they
and what
can't.
and it's not being arrogant. That's the truth.
Well, that's the thing. We're not being arrogant, and I've earned the right. My resume has given me the right to be the most arrogant prick you will ever meet.
I
But
say I
I'm
say
still
that.
humble.
But I say that. I said, but people say to me, "We thought you would be mean." I'm like, "What?
Yeah,
I'm
me
not
too.
mean now."
I get it a lot until I'm nice until you piss me off.
Exactly.
I have ripped
Exactly.
I have ripped promoters an ass
Yeah.
the size of China for safety conditions.
I do that.
When I was Goo Goo Dolls stage manager, we played this place. This promoter had it was 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. We're done. They had no work lights. So
I've
I
been there.
ripped promoter an ass in front of everybody and their mother and made him feel like that big. But the one thing I'm noticing about the kids coming up nowadays is they're arrogant little pricks
Yeah.
who, like you said, are know-it-alls. And you can't tell them what to do.
Yeah.
And that's okay because, like you said, I have made more money off those little shits screwing up. I say continue to screw up,
Yep. And that's exactly it, man.
plain and simple.
Exactly.
Uh, let's see here. How did you do during the pandemic? How were you?
It sucked. It
Well,
really
yeah,
did for me. It did for, and it was like, 'cause see, I was making movies then, so I was off the road, and I just started a TV show called American Rust, and they came in one day, and so when I'm not on tour, I go off and do a TV show or a movie or whatever, so I'm fine. And they came in one day and said, "Put your tools down where you're at. Go home." They had the first COVID case 2.5 miles from where we were at in Pittsburgh, and nobody knew what to do. So
right.
we went home, and I'm thinking, oh, it's going to be you know, just a
Me too.
little, yeah, a couple days off. No, man, and I couldn't collect unemployment. It just they screwed up my unemployment, and it was 10 weeks before I got a paycheck. And you're trying to explain, you're trying to pay child support, trying to explain, trying to pay your bills, and nobody cared. It's just like, look, man, we need, and so I try, this is the truth. I went and I used to work in a steel mill when I was young, and there a quarter mile from my house down the hill, there's a uh, metal casting company, just like a steel mill.
Mhm.
When I was a kid, I was making 18 bucks an hour plus incentives. And that was a lot of money for a kid. That's 30 some years ago, 20 some years ago. And I went down to this thing during the pandemic, which had a help wanted sign. And they said, it's for, it was, what was it? It was 60-hour weeks. It was 60-hour weeks. It was 6 days of 10. And they paid $13 an hour.
Ooh,
And I'm like, I'll take it. And the guy goes, nope. He goes, he goes, "Why would you take this job?" He goes, "We're looking for somebody that's going to stay." He goes, "You're just going to go back on the road when this is over." And this is like, months into the pandemic. He goes, "You're gonna just take off and go back." And I'm like, "Look, I just need a job now. I'll do the best job. Maybe who knows? Maybe I'll stay," which I wouldn't have for that kind of money.
Yeah, no.
But who knows? But the thing was, is it was hard to be with somebody with my skill set because all my jobs were taken away. All because I'm in all entertainment. The movie jobs were gone. The nobody was touring. The
Mhm.
guitar techs were dropped. So I would scrape by, doing setups at home or whatever. But what really what really got me through, and I'm gonna say it, I keep going back to it, is I learned photography in
Yeah.
that 2 years, and I became I thought I was gonna do something like fashion photography or something like that, portraits, like, I learned how to take pictures of bugs. I became a bug photo I went out in my yard and my fields because I live by fields, and I became like a nature photographer. Now here's the irony of this shit. I took a picture of a Venus flytrap eating a fly. And yeah, it's a cool shot. If you go to my Instagram, you'll see it on there. It just was shown at the Bridgeport Arts Center in Chicago for 5 weeks because it was up for like, granted it's a couple years old, but I didn't submit this photo. They picked it. But for Nature Photographer of the Year. And I was like, get out of town, man. And it was all it is a fly getting eaten by a fly trap, but it's it's a good shot.
That's cool, man. I didn't know that.
I submitted a photo of Yosemite because to keep staying on the road with Motley, we had days off, and I would book these day trips. I was in San Fran. I booked a day trip for like $100 and went to Yosemite. It was like a 12, 16-hour round trip, but I spent the day and I was photographing Yosemite and
Awesome.
so I submitted this beautiful shot of Yosemite Valley. You're looking down through there. You can see El Capitan. You can see, the whatever that north face thing is, where the half mound or whatever they call it, and trees and stuff. And it was beautiful. There was like a little smoky haze coming through the valley, and it was awesome. This is great. Well, they looked at my photos and they're like, "We like this, but we want this." And they went in my portfolio and they picked out the fly trap and it hung. It was the first thing you saw. I was so proud of it.
That's
It
awesome.
was the first thing you saw getting off the elevator. But that's what I did during the pandemic. And I started writing a book during the pandemic. And I
Me
was
too.
appro- I was approached. I was approached and it was a cold call. And it was like, "Hey, how would you like to do?" And it was like, "Yeah, sure." But then you start thinking, "Yeah, is this legit?" And I did what I did, and I had complete control, blah blah blah. And then it became, "Well, you can't say this, and you can't say that, and you can't say this, you can't say that, and we need a lawyer for this. And could you just change it like this?" So complete control went out the window.
Yeah.
They wanted 45 pages, and they're like, "Oh no, I give them 45 pages. It was a good story. I tell the stories all the time from the road."
Yeah.
Then they said, "Can we get 45 pages front and back?" So I gave them 45 pages front and back. And then they said, "Oh, wait, we've read some of your short stories," because I dabble in writing. And could you please write it in prose? And I'm like, so it went from 45 pages to 90 pages. And now you're talking about 250 pages. And they're like, "Yes." And I'm like, man, I I wrote it. I liked it. I sent it to them, and they said, "You need to change all this. We need to can you combine a character? Can you do this, that, and everything?" So I started editing it and rearranging it and writing it. And one day I went back. I don't save anything on the cloud. I went back and my computer had crashed, and
Oh,
I lost it. It went all the way back to page 3, and
oh.
I started it again, and I
Well, the
got
good part
called.
about that, by the way, for
Oh,
guys like us, the stories don't change.
yeah, oh, yeah, yeah.
That's
You
the
know,
good part.
that's what's so awesome. And I went and I started work on a TV show, and I got called to do a TV show, and by then pandemic was over, and I went off and I started a TV show, and I stayed busy. I did like 5 movies and TV shows for the next, 8 months. Then I went back with TSO, kicked back in, and I haven't been off the road since.
Trust me, I know. I started last February with Janet Jackson. I literally got home New Year's Eve.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Literally.
what
It's like,
it was February 2022 for me.
because I
And
went from Janet to the Goo Goo Dolls to TSO.
yeah, it's crazy, man. It's been a solid.
And I'm grateful, by the way.
Yeah.
I was exhausted, still not got all my faculties, but I was grateful because that helped with everything we lost in the pandemic
Yes.
financially. It helped put the bank account back. It helped get necessary things done, everything like that. So I'm grateful. You know, my wife not so grateful because I wasn't home. You know, and then, but it's like you said too. I got someone had approached me and said you should write a book. So I reached out to my friend in New York, and I'm like, hey, you know, New Jersey. You know, I don't know how to do this. So she kind of helped me and guided me. I'm 4 chapters in, and there is no taking half this shit back when it comes out.
Exactly.
There's,
That's what the
but I did hack like you have to have the legal route
yeah,
covered, and I do have to change names and all that stuff. And listen, I'm not anybody I ever worked for in the past. I'm never going to be a dick to, you know,
exactly.
and there's no reason to. If I left, I've never been fired. I will say that in my career, I've never been fired, but I left. I left. And I talk about my experiences, and I'm never going to talk bad about anybody. So,
That's what it, kind of mine was. I wouldn't talk bad about.
but I can do like 10, 15, maybe 20 chapters just on Trickster alone, just on the fun we had, the
That's
pranks.
volume 1.
That's volume. Well, it's funny. We go back to our beginning, one of our beginning conversations about the Riot House. I forgot to tell you. So you're talking about walking the ledge.
Yeah.
I repelled out of my hotel room off the back to rooms down below me where girls were. I had the harness, the rope. We were hooking shit up. We were hooking shit up to the bar. It's hoping it wouldn't fucking snap and I'd break my neck. I was rappelling down
Yeah.
where the girls were. And it was that scene right at a Rockstar. I joke you not, the one time. And I didn't rappel off the front of the hotel because I knew I'd be going to jail. It was the back of the hotel. My room, I had a room in the back facing that little parking lot up top.
Yeah.
And so you had the rooms that went down between the trees. So it was that scene at a Rockstar where Wahlberg's throwing the quarters on the girls.
Yeah. Yeah. Right there at the chateau.
So we're like, we're coming.
That's awesome.
Get repelled down. I was like, here's like a 240 pound, 50 pound guy repelling down. This girl's probably going, I'm going to die. But just
Those were fun times.
houses. They were fun times, man. That's it.
And that was just it. It was just to amuse ourselves.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It would just
that's all we ever did shit for was to completely. We didn't do it because here I am with the rock stars. So they didn't need to be bigger rock stars at the time. They were rock stars already.
Yeah.
We were just doing stuff out of sheer boredom and what we thought was funny.
That's what just so it made me laugh.
Yeah.
Just so it made me laugh.
Dude, there was a time we were on the Warrant tour. Oh my God. And we were filming a pay-per-view. What was the dome? What was the old dome? What was the in New Orleans? What was the dome called?
Oh, the Superdome.
Superdome.
Yep.
So we were filming a pay-per-view special, Warrant, Trickster, and Firehouse in the dome. You can actually, I found that pay-per-view on YouTube and watched it one night and just was like, what the hell were we thinking? But we were there for a couple of days, and like it was the night before, everybody went out and got just piss hammered. I mean, we're walking down the street, stumbling with hurricanes in our hand, and so we come back, and there's me, my brother PJ, I think it was the drummer Gus, Jerry Dixon from Warrant, Joey Allen from Warrant. So the last thing I remember was me and Joey going somewhere, and then I woke up the next morning with a tattoo. I'm leaving it there. Now I can't remember if that was that was Memphis. That's where me and Joey got hammered and I got a tattoo in Memphis. So we come to find out that I think it was Jerry Dixon couldn't make it up the escalator and he really had to pee. So he just went and dropped trow and pissed in the fountain in the lobby.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was that.
That was.
And nobody batted an eye.
I told a guy one time, I said, I forget what the deal was. I peed on a satellite dish, and I bet him that I could knock cable out to the whole hotel. And it's just like, yeah.
That's awesome.
Just silly shit like that.
I mean, people think like I don't know how people feel about the biopic, The Dirt. I
Yeah.
loved it because it reminded me of some fun ass times because we
Yeah.
did the same
Yeah.
shit, running through the hotel floors in our underwear. I remember one time I got freaking locked out of my hotel room and I was just in my drawers and a towel. And there was back then, they didn't have phones in the hallway
Yeah.
at the riot house. So I had to go downstairs, and here I am. I wasn't a small boy. Let me be clear. When I was younger, I was a big ass boy. And I go down there, towel on. Hey, I need a key to my room. You have ID? I just looked at the brother and said, really? Really? Come up to my room. I'll be glad to show you my
I'll
ID.
show it to you once you let me in.
So the security guy comes up to my room, shows you where my head was at, what's coming out of my mouth. Forgot that there was someone laying butt naked in my bed.
That'll do it.
And he's like, hello, ma'am. She's like, hello. Just laying there watching TV. Like, you want to see my ID? He's like, no, we're good. I'm out of here. He was just laughing.
Nice.
But anyway, so that was the time. All right. So crap, God, I got to get used to this.
Being there.
All right. So, all right, I got to wrap up here because I got to feed the dogs. So let's wrap up with the music trivia question. And
All right,
thanks to my friend.
let me put the other side in here so I can hear.
Okay. Well, it's an easy one. You should get this.
All right.
My friend Lauren turned me onto this website, which is real cool. Thank you, Laura. So here's the question. And you have 10 seconds to answer. And hang on, wait, I got to get the music up. Give me a second. Hang on, I got to get the music. Where is it? Son of a bitch. Damn it, I forgot the what is that? Ding, ding, ding. No, I don't have that. Never mind. All right, I'll give you. No, I'm not going to do that to you. You don't reach through the fucking screen and kill me. I'll do this because it hurt me more than it hurt you. All right, so who sang backup on the Carly Simon song "You're So Vain"?
Oh, I should know this. I play the song. I know the song.
5 seconds.
You got me on it. I should know this.
You ready for this one? Because I didn't know it.
Give it to me.
Mick Jagger.
No kidding.
No kidding. I did not know that.
I didn't know that. I actually didn't
she
know.
told me that. I'm like, what? You're out of your mind. All right. So
I didn't win.
You didn't win. I didn't win either. So
that's bullshit.
That's right. I'm actually gonna go listen to that in the car when I'm driving. I'll be like,
I know.
Hello, motherfucker.
So, all right. So last one of the night before we wrap up.
You can do it.
See, that's where it was. I got to get these things organized.
Gotta put a little label on there.
All right. You should get this song. We'll just give it a shot. Who played and sang this one?
Oh, yeah, that's easy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who is it?
Third special?
Yeah. All right. These are going to get better. This is only my second episode, but Hoogie. I had fun with Hoogie. I'm so glad you're on this because we got to do this again. We just need to slot way more time because we're just going to go through old stories. But if anybody wants to check out Fred's socials, check him out. He's got amazing photography. He's such a great guy, such a sweet man. And hopefully one day we'll tour together. If before we're not dead, because we're getting old. So, but all right, brother, I appreciate your time, everyone. Mr. Fred Kowalo. Kowalo.
Just like the bear. Kowalo like the bear.
Damn it. Fred Kowalo. All right, brother. Thank you so much.
All right. Good seeing you.
We'll be in touch.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.